Okay, great. Cool. Vanchakalpatrubhischa kripasinduevacha Patitanam pavanabhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. Om Agyan Tinamandasya Gyanjana Salakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tashmai Shiguru Namaha Trinadapi Sunichana Tarorapi Sahishnanam Amanina Manadena Kitanisadahari Vachavigam Shakravigam Jivavigam Udarapastavigam Etam Vigam Yovishahete Dira Stavamapimam Prithvim Sasisyat Tatena Kampam Samikshamro Unjanavat Malkitam Vipakam Hit Vafafopir Vididam Namaste Jivata Yomukti Sadayabak Anya Balasata Sonyam Gyan Kamadhyana Vritam Anukalenya Krishna Shilanam Bhakti Uttamam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. My Dandavat pranams, my humble obeisances to my beloved Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, and to Srila Prabhupada, the entire parampara, to Nityananda Prabhu, to Mahaprabhu, to Shri Shri Radha and Krishna, and to all the beautiful assembled devotees, and all those devotees who will be watching the recording in the future. In a change to the public schedule where we normally honor those acharyas that have disappeared and appeared this week, actually we should just mention them in passing, Maharaj, probably, just to keep up that vrat. But this week is a very, very special week because it is the week of Sri Rupa Goswami's Tirabhav festival, a festival that is as dear to our Srila Gurudev as both of his parikrams. You could say that was the tripod of his seva, was the Navri parikram, the Braj Mandal parikram, and honoring Rupa Goswami, who he said, I'm paraphrasing, not literally, it's pretty much he said the following, that if we're not taking our pulse to the degree to which we're following Rupa Goswami on a daily basis, then there is little point in our life on this planet. Such is the importance of Rupa Goswami. So I'm very grateful to Maharaji because we've got a 4-day festival this week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 43 speakers, 10 hours a day, a morning session, an evening session. It's going to be a tremendous Qatar, tremendous festival. And Maharaj is really kicking off the week beautifully by dedicating this program to Sri Rupa Goswami. So Maharaji, live from God Room, Srila Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj, always a total pleasure. And we are so happy to change our time that we normally do this program to make sure that we can hear your beautiful Qatar, Maharaj. So I offer you the Vyasa Sun, the Zoom Vyasa Sun, please. A warm welcome.
Thank you, Yashoda. Thank you. Always a great pleasure to be with you and all the devotees. Thank you, Yashoda, for your inconvenienced time. Very generous of you to attend early morning for you.
We're just lucky to have you, Maharaj.
No, I'm lucky without all you. Without all you, who would I speak to? Okay, I'll begin. Om Agina Timirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namaha. Namashreshtam Manomapi Sachipatram Atrasvarupam Rupam Tasya Graja Mariparam Gostavitim Radha Kundam Girivaramaho Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratito Kripaya Shri Gurum Tam Natoshmi. Bhaktya vina aparada lakshay Shiptascha karmadi taranga madhye Kripa maitvam sharanam prapana Brinde namaste charana ravindam Bhajami radham aravinda netram Smarami radham madhurashmitasyam Vadami radham karuna baradram Tatom manasti katyena kapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams to my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadastra Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our most beloved, Nitya Lila Pravishna Om Asto Tadastra Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord on this thread, and any Tridandi Sannyas who are also listening at any time, my most humble obeisances to you all. Thank you all for coming. Jai. So the title of what I'm going to present is called Initiating the Current of Rupa Goswami, because as our dear Yashoda Prabhu just mentioned, we are having a packed up week, 4 days of glorification of Srila Rupa Goswami Pad. Rupa Goswami Pad could be glorified 365 days of the year without a doubt. But my Gurudev managed to capture 4 powerful days, which is actually during the Julan Yatra in Vrindavan. This festival also manifests at the same time. So Vrindavan itself is on mute. Did you hear anything what I said? Too late. Oh, I can't hear Yashoda. Yashoda's muted.
You only lost about 10 seconds, Maharaj. You said about the importance of the packed week.
Yeah, a packed week with so many visitors coming to Vrindavan, and Gurudev would hold this festival in Rup Sanatan Mandir for 4 days, inviting so many elevated Brahmins and personalities from Vrindavan itself and from outside of Vrindavan. You can mute up, Yashoda, now. Yashoda, you can mute now. So, to glorify Srila Rupa Goswami Pad, we have nothing, as we know, without Rupa Goswami Pad. Sri Sachinandan Gaurahari, he brought this mission from Goloka Vrindavan in order to experience and taste the sweetness that Radhika experienced by receiving his love, the speciality of his love. And he only gave us 8 verses, the Shikshastakam, but he empowered Srila Rupa Goswami Pad to completely give us the rest of the package, so to speak. And what an amazing esoteric teaching he had to give us. The most esoteric teachings ever known to man. Mahaprabhu comes once in the day of Lord Brahma, once every 8,640,000,000 years. So such an extraordinary length of time. And Mahaprabhu is coming for what reason? He's coming to break all the boundaries of our consciousnesses by presenting the philosophy in a sense which was already there, but nothing like to the same pitch or degree that he wanted to share with the world. Rupa Goswami, he captures this himself personally with the favorite verse of our beloved Gurudev. Anapita chirim chirat karunavaritino kalo samaravaitam unnata ujvala rasam swa bhakti shriyam haripurata sundara dudikatam vasadipita sada hridare kandare spuratu vasachi nandanaha. That when in the innermost chambers of my heart this personality will manifest Satchinandan Gaura Hari. So my Gurudev would always glorify Srila Rupa Goswami with a particular verse. Today, because time is going to be limited to only an hour or so, I want to explain the beginning of Rupa Goswami's pastimes, we can say, in his relationship with Mahaprabhu. And then I want to scroll through quite rapidly the three meetings or the two meetings in Prayag and Puri, just briefly. And then I want to, with your permission, read a very short excerpt from the Vidagdha Madhava. Right at the end, I would like to do this. So I've never before done this publicly, but on completing that book again recently, Srila Rupa Goswami himself, he says, he hopes that this book will be studied. So I'm taking advantage of those lines, and I want to open this book out for our meditation and contemplation. At the end, I want to read that. So my Gurudev would always glorify Srila Rupa Goswami with Kavi Kanpur's most beautiful, eloquent verse. Priya Swarupe, Dayata Swarupe, Prema Swarupe, Sahaja Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhur Eka Rupe, Tatana Rupe, Swavilasa Rupe. This verse by Kavi Kanpur, Priya Swarupe. Rupa Goswami is very dear to Srila Swarup Damodar. Who is Swarup Damodar? Lalita Devi herself, always accompanying Mahaprabhu wherever he goes. And Rupa Goswami was most dear to Swarup Damodar, Priya Swarupe, Dayata Swarupe. He was most dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as we will appreciate through the coming days as we unpack his glories, etc. Dayata Swarupe, Prema Swarupe. He's the embodiment of Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love, the very embodiment of that love. This is hard to conceive of, all packed, but we can understand that to some degree, because what does Mahaprabhu want to taste? He wants to experience the heart of Shri Radhika. He wants to taste her Madanakya Mahabhav, her Mohanakya Mahabhav. This is his intention. When he came as Krishna 5,000 years ago, he was just relishing as the Vishaya, as the enjoyer. In this incarnation as Mahaprabhu, he's the Ashraya. He's the taster of that through the medium of Sri Radhika. So who knows Sri Radhika better than Rupa Manjari? Rupa Manjari is never away or separated from Radhika. So it is possible for Rupa Goswami to hold that ecstatic prem within his heart, because he's always with Sri Radhika. He knows the nuances. He knows the movements of love, which I want to describe at the end through the teaching of Vidagdha Madhava, where we get a glimpse into the excellence and the phenomenal way that love unfolds on the stage of Vrindavan. So, Prema Swarupe, Sahaja Rupe, he also had the form, such a beautiful form, Rupa Goswami's own form. He was perhaps 3-4 years younger than Mahaprabhu. And he had the most beautiful, elegant, exquisite form to match the excellence of the sweetness of his heart. So this is described here, Sahaja Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhu Eka Rupe. He was fully competent because he followed so carefully Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nija Swarupe, Prabhu Eka Rupe. He had the ability to follow so closely the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, Tatana Rupe, Swavilasa Rupe. Therefore, he was the one most competent to describe the Swavilasa Rupe, the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan for us. Prior to Mahaprabhu, we understand that the conception of Parakya Bhav was practically abhorrent to any respectable Vaishnava, to consider that there should be a relationship of unwedded love. This was practically unheard of. Personalities like Jaidev Goswami, they presented something of this, but it wasn't complete. And can we imagine that Mahaprabhu had this intention to wake us up to this extraordinary divine state of consciousness? It's incredible what he set out to do, really and truly. It's not just believe in God, worship God, pray to God, not even just to serve God, but how to serve God. This Swa Bhakti Shriyam that we've just said in this Anapita Chirim Chirat verse. Mahaprabhu himself, he's going to taste this Unnata Ujjvala Prem, but he's going to give us this Swa Bhakti Shriyam, the beauty of his own bhakti in the form of Manjari Bhav. How can that be? How can he possibly set out on a mission to give the most densely conditioned souls in the midst of Kali Yuga and all the enormous distractions that we have moment by moment, give this incredible divine state of consciousness to encourage us on this path of pure spiritual appreciation of that world? First of all, it begins in Vrindavan. This is why our Gurudev took us so diligently, year after year after year after year, to all the holy places of Vrindavan. And it's described by Narada Muni. If we visit these places during the month of Kartik, under the guidance of a Mahabhagavat, then surely this Braja Ras will actually manifest in the heart. This was the gift of Mahaprabhu. He wanted to give us Braja Ras. It seems impossible to go this route, but by the mercy of Rupa Goswami, everything became possible. So initially, Mahaprabhu, in the year 1515, we should remember this date. It's very pivotal. It's the date that Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu takes the renounced order in 1510. Then for the next 2.5, 3 years, practically, he's traveling in India. And then he has a desire to go to Vrindavan. And he's also had some correspondence with the two brothers. The two brothers, in fact, they were working for the Nawab Hussain Shah in north of Navadvip in Bengal. And they had more or less been press ganged, we can say, into his service. Actually, Rupa and Sanatan, in their lineage, they had had a history. Their great-grandfather, their great-great-great-grandfather, they were Karnataka Brahmanas. And their great-great-great-grandfather worked in the royal court in Karnataka. They had had this type of activities within their family. So for them to join the court of Hussain Shah wasn't such an extraordinary leap for them, in fact, because their family, Jiva Goswami, he writes carefully, he enumerates their whole family lineage, and it goes right back to these Karnataka Brahmin Vaishnavas in the south of India. And then he walks carefully through all the different personalities. So Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had accepted those posts in Ramkeli. So as Mahaprabhu came through Bengal in 1515, after visiting South India, etc., on his way to Vrindavan, he specifically wanted to meet these two brothers. Now, try to appreciate this point that I want to describe now, that the city of Ramkeli is a city. If some of you have already been there to visit it, you'll appreciate what I'm talking about. And if those who haven't, please, at some time in the future, take a journey. It's 6 hours north of Navadvip, and it's absolutely remarkable. There are the ancient ruins of buildings as big as cathedrals that we would see here in the Western world. Enormous halls, etc. Huge, wide stone walls. I mean, we can imagine a really flourishing, powerful city capital. Hussein Shah ruled the whole of Bengal from this seat. And prior to Hussein Shah, this place of Ramkeli had been the capital city of previous kings of Bengal. It's actually situated right on the Ganga at a particular junction where it's accessible to all the boats and traffic on the Ganga. So that's why it was such a flourishing place. So Mahaprabhu, he just boldly walked into this teeming city of Muslims with hundreds and thousands of ecstatic followers. Mahaprabhu is holding the complexion of Sri Radhika. When Mahaprabhu would walk around, the people were so attracted to his absolute beauty and sweetness that they became spellbound, and they would just drop everything in their lives and race after Mahaprabhu. That beauty of Sri Radhika we cannot conceive, but Mahaprabhu was carrying that. He was carrying that bhav and kanti and complexion of Sri Radhika. So when he reached this city of Ramkeli, he had an enormous following with him. So Hussein Shah immediately sent his servants to assess what sort of person this was and why was he invading his apparent kingdom. He was a very aggressive king, Hussein Shah. His atrocities are horrific to see. He killed many of his own family members just to take the seat of that royal throne. He ascended the throne in 1594. So we're talking now 1515. In 1494, he took the kingship. So his ministers, they were overwhelmed by the beauty and speciality of Mahaprabhu, and they reported back to Hussein Shah, this is no ordinary fakir or regular Muslim mendicant. This is a really potent, powerful personality. So Hussein Shah had some sense of honor, etc. And he ordered all his ministers to not disturb Mahaprabhu. This is the mercy of Mahaprabhu himself entering the heart of Hussein Shah so that his mission could be accomplished in Ramkeli. He didn't stay very long in Ramkeli. He stayed a couple of days only, specifically to meet the two brothers. But as I've described, the two brothers, they were working in the court of Hussein Shah. Sanatan was the prime minister. Rupa Goswami was like the general secretary. They were both very highly placed servants of Hussein Shah. They had great responsibilities. They themselves had large courts where they would have many brahmanas there because Hussein Shah wasn't attacking all the Hindus, etc. Partly because Rupa and Sanatan were working for him, and because they were working for him, they'd made a pact that he wouldn't harass unnecessarily the Hindus and the Vaishnavas in particular. So Rupa and Sanatan, they both had their own elaborate courts with many Brahmins there and Vaishnavas there. But nevertheless, they had to come in disguise to meet Mahaprabhu, and they meet him at midnight, it's described. And they meet him very, very briefly for about 10 minutes practically. 10, 15, 20 minutes was the length of their meeting. So they had enough time to express their affection and devotion for Mahaprabhu in that moment with their glances, etc. And Mahaprabhu immediately recognized them as his eternal associates. And he gave them just a single instruction. He told them both to release themselves immediately from that employment with Hussein Shah and immediately join his mission, that they were both needed. They're described, these two personalities, as Krishnadas Kaviraj describes them as Parama Praveen. Praveen means brilliant or wise. And Mahaprabhu, when he's describing these two brothers, he describes them as totally brilliant personalities. They were only young when Mahaprabhu met them. Mahaprabhu would have been about 29 years old at this time. He was also in a young body, but the two brothers, they were about 26 and 27 years old. This was their ages. So these are like young men, but appreciate the culture at that time. These two personalities would have grown up, been instructed by brahmanas from birth, more or less, from 5 or 6. At the age of 12, they themselves would have been giving discourses on the scriptures. It wasn't that they roamed around loosely like we have in society today, with young girls and young boys completely gobbling up their teenage years with frivolous activities. They would have stayed very sober in the company of brahmanas through their teenage years, etc. So they were of a completely mature type by the age of 24, 25, 26, etc. So even though today, if we try to judge them by today's standard of a 25 or 26-year-old, we might think, well, that's extremely young. But in those days, it wasn't of the same youthful nature. They were very mature personalities. So Mahaprabhu instructed them both. They came disguised. They had to take off their royal dresses. They were totally working fully for the Nawab Hussein Shah. They were in his court. They were hobnobbing around with all the aristocratic Muslims, etc., who had so much wealth they had taken from the palaces, etc., of the Hindus. And immediately, Rupa Goswami was able to disentangle himself. He was the chief minister. And it's described by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj that he takes 2 boatloads of wealth away with him. 2 boatloads. If you see the regular sized boats on the Jamuna or in here on the Ganga, they're quite large, big enough for 40 or 50 people perhaps. And he took 2 boatloads of wealth. So that's a considerable, I'm just trying to describe who is this person previously, what sort of lifestyle was he submitting to, working for the Nawab of Hussein Shah. So then he was able to disentangle himself and take an enormous amount of wealth along with him. And he gave, it's described as half of that wealth to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. He gave a half of that wealth for his own family members to support Jiva Goswami in particular, his nephew of his brother Anupam. And he left 10,000 coins with a grocer in Ramkeli for Sanatana Goswami to use to make his escape, because Sanatana Goswami was the prime minister and Hussein Shah loved him. He genuinely, the way Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj describes, their relationship was very close between Hussein Shah and Sanatana Goswami. These personalities were naturally loving souls. They were Vaishnavas, but they were being misdirected by the environment, etc. Nevertheless, Hussein Shah, he showed so much affection to Sanatana Goswami and would not allow him to leave. He actually told Sanatana, I'm about to attack Orissa, you must come with me. And Sanatana had already received the instruction from Mahaprabhu and said, no, I will not join your army to go and attack that king Prataparudra in Orissa. And then we know the story, how the king actually came to his house and then subsequently put him in jail. And if you go to this place, Ramkeli, you can witness, you can see the jail where Sanatana Goswami was placed. And it's really, when I approached it, some months ago, my heart began to tremble. It's a really ominous looking place. It's a huge building, as big as perhaps 2 tennis courts, and it's completely round. And there's only one door into it and small little windows going around. It's a very, very intimidating place. And this is where Sanatana Goswami was placed. So this is the sort of backdrop. So Rupa Goswami, he gets away from that whole environment and he sends word to Orissa, and he finds that Mahaprabhu now has taken his journey through the Jharikanda forest and will reach Prayag. So Rupa Goswami, he makes haste with Anupam and goes straight to Prayag. This would have been late 1515. This was after the meeting, which was in early 1515. And after all these acts had transpired, then he meets Mahaprabhu in Prayag. And in Prayag, he has the fortune to be with Mahaprabhu for 10 solid days. And here at the Dash Ashwamedha Ghat in Prayag, he hears all of the truths spoken by Mahaprabhu into his heart. Rupa Goswami is such an eligible recipient. He's Sri Radhika's maidservant. He's the most receptive personality that could possibly be. And Mahaprabhu just poured all his teachings into the heart of Rupa Goswami, who was able to capture all of these teachings and digest them and give them to us in a completely sweet and compatible way for us to appreciate. So the very first verse, I just want to read this verse because it's very, very beautiful. It's the first verse in the Madhya Lila 19, verse 1. Vrindavaniyam rasakeli vartam kalena luptam nija shaktim nukkai sancharya rupe vitanota punsa prabhu vido prag iva loka asmin shmistim. So the translation, listen beautifully. This is the beginning of Mahaprabhu's instructions. He says, before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Lord Brahma with the details of the creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge. In exactly the same way, the Lord, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency. By this potency, Srila Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory. In this way, he spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. So he's able to revive the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan. This is essentially what all the teachings of Rupa Goswami are about. He's giving totally the stages from Shraddha to Prem. Ado Shraddha Tata Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Nishtha, etc. All stages to Prem. He's also giving all the stages after Prem. Sneha, Man, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav, Modan, Madanaki, Mahabhav, all these stages. He's giving us step by step. He's giving us an explanation of what is Uttam Bhakti and Ya Vilasita Shunyam Gyan Karmadi Anavritam. He's giving us what should be our focus, what is our practice. Kriti Sadhya Bhavet Sadhya Bhav Sasadhanavida Nitya Siddhyasya Bhavasya Prakritam Hidi Sadhyate. He's giving us what is the definition of Bhav Bhakti. Shura Shatva Visheshatma Prem Suryavam Samya Bhak. He's describing the 9 symptoms of Bhav. Shanti Avyakta Kalatvam Viraktam Manasunyata Ashabandha Samutkanta Namagana Sararuchi, etc. All of these stepping stones, these stages, how to get this Krishna in Vrindavan. It's a process to reach Krishna in Vrindavan. It's a scientific process, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada explained to us. Rupa Goswami has given it in a scientific fashion that you can walk step by step by step by step. What is sadhana bhakti? What is bhav bhakti? What is prema bhakti? He's given all of this and so much more as well. He's given descriptions through his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of all of these, the whole ocean of rasa. Even though Mahaprabhu just spent 10 days with him, he gave him the entirety of the ocean of this Bhakti Ras. Because Mahaprabhu has not just come to give Bhakti, he's come to give Bhakti Ras. There's such a distinction. Bhakti is just like devotion, not just, but it is devotion of an extreme sweetness and speciality. But Bhakti Ras is the mixing of the ingredients of the spontaneous attraction to Krishna from the heart spontaneously manifesting in sublime service to principally Sri Radhika. This whole Gaudiya mission is Radhika's line. It is her line. It's all her maidservants that she sends in this line, starting with Rupa Goswami, Rupa Manjari, Sanatan Goswami, Lavanga Manjari, Raghunath Das, Rati Manjari, all of the personalities, all the way down, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Kamala Manjari, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Naini Manjari, all of these personalities, all the way down. It's all her maidservants because she is wanting to support her darling Krishna to taste these moods that only she can taste. She loves Krishna more than Krishna loves her. And this is evident that Krishna doesn't embrace kadamba trees, but Radhika, she will embrace a tamal tree in complete ecstatic trance, considering that this tamal tree is directly Krishna. It's called Divyan Mad. It's like she goes into these stages of madness that we read in Brahma Ragit, these 10 different stages. This Parijalpa, Pratijalpa, Vijalpa, Ujalpa, Sanjalpa, Ajalpa, Abhijalpa, Pratijalpa, Sanjalpa, these Jalpas, Chitra Jalpas. Rupa Goswami is the one who's described all of these Jalpas. He's described this Divyan Mad. He's the only one who's walked us through. So what sort of indebtedness does the serious Vaishnava practitioner sadhak think today when he remembers Srila Rupa Goswami? What type of gratitude rises in our hearts, appreciating the entirety of what he's bestowed to us? What are all these teachings that he received in Prayag? So he was there for 10 days. And then Mahaprabhu sends him to Vrindavan to become acquainted with the landscape, so to speak, of Vrindavan itself. Of course, we know Vrindavan in those days, 500 years ago, was simply a jungle, a forest of mosquitoes and other, discomforts to the human body. Lokanath Goswami and Burgaba Goswami, they'd already gone there. They had been there for 2 years prior to Mahaprabhu had his plan. He had his fixed map of how he wanted to give this extraordinary, and it's so extraordinary, to change the hearts of conditioned souls to accept, first of all, the conception of parakiya. Any respectable Vaishnava doesn't want to hear about paramour relationship. Even after Rupa Goswami placed all these truths into the world, still a short time after, the Brahmanas, they weren't able to cope with it. They actually couldn't cope with the idea that Krishna had a paramour relationship with Radhika. And this is the highest conception. Baladev Vidyabhushan had to go to Jaipur. He had to write that whole Govinda Bhasya to convince the smarters to allow Radhika to stand next to Govindaji in Jaipur. So even after Rupa Goswami, still there were difficulties. So imagine what Rupa Goswami, imagine the task, imagine his utter brilliance and psyche and nature and every aspect of his being, being able to present these, the analysis of this transcendental love and bring it into this is what Mahaprabhu came for. And without Rupa Goswami carrying this and explaining, it would never have happened. Therefore, Radhika has empowered this whole Gaudiya line. It's when we read the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's only focusing on Sri Radhika. So many of the Narottam Das is focusing on Radhika. They are all focusing on Radhika. They have understood that this current is manifesting from Radhika through Rupa Manjari, Rupa Goswami. So it's Rupa Goswami. We're celebrating the beginning. As I said at the beginning, this is trying to initiate the current of Rupa Goswami's gifts to the world. So many other eloquent speakers will unpack all the specific varieties of gifts that Srila Rupa Goswami gave. I mean, there are so many sections to the gifts that he gave, like Upadeshamrita, for example, these verses, how they carry the reader right to the highest conception of Manjari Bhav. Actually, if you have the folio program and you type in Prabhupada's folio program, Manjari Bhav, it comes up once in the whole program, in all of his teachings and writings, and that's in the last verse of Upadeshamrita. So these conceptions are not easy to give people. Even now, today, I'm thinking it's phenomenal. How many of us sitting here listening to these conceptions of Rupa Goswami to some degree are able to fathom the depths or the gifts of what he actually gave to us? Probably not so many. It's very, very rare. Even for us now on this Zoom class, that you've all had the enthusiasm to want to actually come to listen to about Rupa Goswami, this in itself says a great deal. It says a great deal about your own personal success of your own journey. That yes, I want to hear about Rupa Goswami. Srila Gurudev, he said that we should have a desire to hear something about Rupa Goswami daily. If we hear something about Rupa Goswami, his glories, his teachings, his writings, after Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, what came? Ujjvala Nilamani. And who came after this? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who is like a second Rupa Goswami practically. He gave us the Bindu. He gave us the Kiran, the condensed version of the Ujjvala Nilamani. In the Ujjvala Nilamani, all the terminologies, all the words describing the incredible nuances of the relationships between Radha and Krishna and the Gopi, the Sakhis in particular, the Manjaris, the messengers, etc. All of the whole roadshow, we can say, that is necessary to bring the loving couple together. It's simply, just to consider it, it's such a daunting challenge that I think Mahaprabhu took on himself to give this into the heart of the conditioned soul, this spontaneous love. It's so esoteric, we can say. And how is that going to manifest in the darkness? Probably of the darkest Kali Yuga in the whole 1,000 Kali Yugas in this particular day of Lord Brahma. This is the darkest. So much distraction. Now we have these cell phones every single second. We're getting different sort of microwaves and polluted water, polluted foods. On every single aspect of our material existence, it's hellish. If the devotees haven't realized this place is full of hell, is no separate, then how can we entertain the idea to get out of it? This is actually a great udipan. It's a great impetus to clear forever this material world. How much are we suffering in this material world? How much pinching are we going to receive before we say, right, that's it, have done? Now, where's the key to actually break free from this material conditioned consciousness? It's all stages of consciousness. It has nothing to do really with the external predicaments that we're in. It's really the state of consciousness We can be sitting in this world of darkness and suffering and be totally ecstatic, remembering Srila Rupa Goswami and his pastimes. We don't have to be influenced by the negativity of the world at large, which seems to be, at the moment, putting on its most strongest distracting front for the devotees to fall into. Don't be distracted, my friends. Stay with the essence. We have the essence. Don't let it slip. It's such a cherished jewel, and it's all coming from the mercy of Srila Rupa Goswami. So I'm wondering if you, well, I'm going to take a chance anyway. I'm going to hope that you will have the patience to listen to a little bit of Vidagdha Madhava, this very beautiful book, Vidagdha Madhava. I just want to read a short excerpt, because after Rupa Goswami goes to Vrindavan, he's there for approximately a year. Then he comes to Puri Dham. And in Puri, he stays for approximately 10 months. So it's interesting. If you want to have some sort of trick in your mind, I use these little tricks like a 10-minute meeting in Ramkeli, a 10-day meeting at Prayag, and a 10-month meeting in Puri. And you can think about those times and what actually transpired during those times. And you can, in a moment, 10, 10, 10, get the whole collection of Mahaprabhu, of Rupa Goswami's movements and his connection with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So you can catch sort of a current of that. It's just a trick. You know, it's like in the Upadesh. Yes.
Three. Yeah, it's great.
And the same with Upadeshamrita. 3, 3, 2, and 3. The first 3 verses are about the prohibitions, etc. Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam. And then we come to relationships with devotees, Dadati Pradiknati Guyam. There's 3 verses about devotional relationships. Then there's the 2 central verses, Tannama Rupa Charita Adi Sukirtana. These 2 central verses. And then there's the final 3 verses of where is the place for bhajan, Radha Kund. So 3, 3, 2, and 3. Just, it's a trick that you can be walking in the street and you can just think 3, 3, 2, 3, and you capture the whole of the Upadeshamrita. So in a similar way, 10, 10, 10, you can capture the whole life just in a moment of Srila Rupa Goswami. It's helpful for our memories. So when he was in Puri, then he was originally planning to write this Vidagdha Madhava and Lalit Madhava as a single book. But he was instructed directly by Satyabhama in Satyabhamapur to actually make 2 books. Don't try and bring Vrindavan into Dwarka. It doesn't fit. It's Aishwarya. You cannot fit the Madhurya into Aishwarya in that fashion. Impossible. And then Mahaprabhu, he reinforces that idea afterwards. He says independently to Rupa Goswami, yes, you make 2 books. So Rupa Goswami, in that meeting in Puri, he begins to, the devotees, they press him, Mahaprabhu in particular, to share with them what he's writing. And all the devotees come one day to Haridas Thakur's Siddhabakul ashram. And there's Rai Ramananda, there's Swarup Damodar, there's Advaita Acharya, Nityananda Prabhu, Bakrishra Pandit, all high quality devotees. And they start to push Rupa Goswami to share his writings. And Rupa Goswami begins to speak some of these verses from Vidagdha Madhava. And you get the sense that all of these mature devotees like Swarup Damodar, they suddenly felt, yes, this mission is going to be successful. Yes, we've heard these extraordinary words coming from the lips of this young boy, this effulgent boy, describing the exquisite nature of Radha and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Yes, there's a chance that this mission will succeed. They feel so encouraged that Rupa Goswami, that they can sense, they can smell the fragrance of his words. Rai Ramananda in particular, he's such a versed scholar. in these Shastras, and he's able to appreciate, yes, he's captured the very Mano Vishtam, this Mano Vishtam, this heart of Mahaprabhu, he's captured it. And they all rejoice, feeling, yes, this mission will succeed because of Rupa Goswami. It's in safe, because these older personalities, they were so caught up in supporting Mahaprabhu physically in Orissa, etc., and previously in his travels around. But what about posterity? How was it going to be, inaugurated into the future? What's the point of Mahaprabhu just coming for one brief pastime? But how are the teachings going to be impressed in the soft hearts of the Vaishnavas? And through all of these Goswamis of Vrindavan, particularly, of course, Rupa Goswami, then it manifested. It was able to manifest. So this Vidagdha Madhava is not presented at the same speed that perhaps our minds are working now under the influence of Kali Maharaj in this present environment with our cell phones, etc. It's at a much more gentle pace. That's why I really want to read this, because it's a very, very small pastime from the beginning of this Vidagdha Madhava, but it accentuates, it shows what it brings out for me personally is the amazing role that the gopis play in bringing Radha and Krishna together. Radha and Krishna are so intoxicated by each other's beauty and sweetness, but their moods of affection are bewildering their minds. And they're filled with reserve because it's such an extraordinary power that's manifesting in their minds and hearts. They don't quite know how to manage it. There might be a parallel if you ever had a girlfriend when you were very, very young, or somebody that you had a crush on or something like that, maybe 8 or 9 or 10 years old. You wouldn't have known quite what to do with it the very first time that ever landed. And sometimes the boy might punch the girl or something like this, completely contrary to what he's really feeling. So these sorts of acts are going on between Radha and Krishna. It's extraordinary. So the pastime opens out. I'm reading from text 24c, if you happen to have this beautiful book. And this is a drama. Rupa Goswami is crafting this in a drama. There's a special beauty in drama. It's like poetry. It can go deeper than just direct prose, because we're getting the atmosphere, we're getting the mood of the character. The characters are walking out of the pages, and Rupa Goswami, being so proficient and knowledgeable about the characters, is able to portray them so lucidly. It's actually divine words. So it'll take about 10 minutes. We have 10, 15 minutes, Yashoda? Yashoda, we have 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah,
just
actually, I'm trying to get the, we do, no problem. Maharaj, is it Act 1, is it the first act of the whole book?
Yes. Act 1, text 24c. If Manjalali is there, she may be able to access it. I should have told her previously. You've got it. Is it possible? If you send it to Manjalali, she'll put it on the screen for us to all look at. So Krishna enters. And of course, the backdrop, as I've already said, is only Vrindavan in this Vidagdha Madhava. Everything, the whole flavor of Vrindavan is going to resonate through. So Krishna enters. Krishna is anxious. And he's saying, from the moment that abode, splendid with new lightning, suddenly filled my eyes with wonder, my heart fell into a whirlpool of rapt meditation. Now my heart, like a yogini, has renounced all other happiness. Krishna is utterly absorbed in Sri Radhika, utterly. Then he says, I sent my friend, Madhumangal, to bring a Gunja necklace. Why does he delay? Krishna has a purpose for this necklace. Then almost immediately on stage, carrying a necklace in his hand, Madhumangal enters. Madhumangal says, why is my dear friend unhappy? So be it, he says. In time, I will know why. Even this in itself is instructive. Madhumangal is the Brahmin boy. He has patience. He will in time understand why Krishna is appearing unhappy. So this is also, we can read, Udara will appreciate, going into the analysis of the personalities. You know, what flavor is he bringing out? Because Rupa Goswami has told us to study this book. Study means we can take the microscope out and we can examine it closely. We can really see what is Rupa Goswami sharing here. Then walking, Madhumangal sees Krishna and says to himself, looking at a vine blooming with many golden champak flowers, Krishna trembles. I think fair Radha, decorated with new kumkum, is now pictured on the drawing paper of Krishna's mind. Madhumangal approaches Krishna. Please take. He offers the garland to Krishna. Krishna, as if he had not heard, says, her body is splendid, like a budding Ketaki tree on a golden mountain. When will she become a lightning flash, decorating the splendid monsoon cloud of my chest? Krishna, he's thinking like this. Then Madhumangal, he says to himself, my guesses and speculations have now borne fruit. Then openly in a loud voice he says, dear friend, you do not see me, even when I stand before you and call out to you. Krishna, concealing his emotions, friend, entranced by the beauty of this flowering champak vine, I did not notice you. Madhumangal, you speak the truth. Why were you looking at that winding champak vine? He wants communication with Krishna. He wants to hear Krishna's heart because he wants to know why it appears to be unhappy in some sense. And then Krishna says, friend, I cannot find where this winding vine starts. Krishna is trying to make a smokescreen. He's trying to hide, keep his feelings back. Then Madhumangal, friend, for a moment, please stop this crookedness. Speak plainly. Why is your heart now desolate like a desert? Madhumangal confronts him. Madhumangal is so dear to Krishna. He has the capacity to always be light-hearted and joking and incredibly wise, like a visionary. He does all kinds of special savors to Krishna. Krishna can't cope without these personalities. This is demonstrating how the parikars of Krishna support all of his desires to, in this case, be united with Sri Radhika. Krishna smiles. Friend, I have no garland, he says. Such an abstract thing to say. But he was waiting for the Gunja garland to come. Then Madhumangal comments, you should say girl, not garland. He's confronting him. And then Krishna says, that is a foolish suspicion. He tries to hide it again. Then Madhumangal says in Sanskrit, you do not know that the peacock feather has fallen from your head. You do not see that the garland has fallen from your neck. O youthful elephant playing in the groves of Vrindavan forest. These events are caused by the great power of two bumblebee eyes that have seen Radha. So now Madhumangal, it takes Madhumangal, you see, to bring it out. Krishna, he's not going to say it himself directly. Madhumangal says it. Now Krishna says to himself, how did this rascal understand everything? Then he says, why try and fool him? Then openly he says, what you say is true. He's sharing his heart now. Krishna is ready to share his heart with someone. Then he says, as the full moon in the month of Jyeshta fills the Ganga with violent waves, Radha has transformed my heart. And Madhumangal says, this girl now stands before your eyes. Krishna, indeed it is true. She has come because of Subal. Krishna becomes eager and anxious. Madhumangal is saying that she's in front of his eyes because his whole consciousness is only filled with Radha. It's not that she is actually present directly in front of him. Then Krishna carries on glorifying Radhika. He says, whenever I look at that girl with bimba fruit lips, that girl who the restless flowering vines of her eyebrows and with many restless sidelong glances in every direction teaches the graceful does the art of casting waves of crooked glances. Cruel and angry Kamadev aims at me his peerless bow of flowers. So this poetry is exceptional. Then Madhumangal, he responds. He says, perhaps you two have seen each other before. He's talking about Radha and Krishna. Krishna says, no, no, friend. Whenever the cooling and splendid moon of her face begins to walk on the pathway of my eyes, my mother, speaking millions of curses, stubbornly brings me home for supper. So this is an initiating conception of meeting and separation. As soon as he starts to meet with the eyes of Sri Radhika, his mother calls him back. This is the whole current of Bhakti Ras. It revolves around meeting and separation. And if we have the patience to hear this, it'll support our contemplation. Madhumangal continues, friend, there are many beautiful gopis. Why do you love only Radha with such fervor? Krishna responds, friend, uncommon sweetness resides within Radha. My dear friend, what a wonderful thing it is that since I have seen the beautiful lotus eyes of Srimati Radharani, I have developed a tendency to spit on the moon and the lotus flower. So here's a comparison. Madhumangal responds, when I first saw you, I could guess that you had fallen in love. Why do you say Radha is so beautiful? Why is Madhumangal saying this? He's saying it because he knows that Krishna only wants to talk about Radha. Radha is fully on his mind. So Madhumangal is opening a door for Krishna to glorify Radha because that will please Krishna. This is seva. This is seva in Vrindavan. Rupa Goswami is showing us what is the seva to Krishna. How do we perform seva in this brilliant way to open the door to Krishna's thoughts so he can glorify Sri Radha? Krishna says, friend, what you say is true. If you think about her, you will know something of her great glory. If great souls love a person, you should know that person is very glorious. Krishna is considering himself a great soul. Why not? Everyone else thinks he's a great soul. So Krishna also thinks he's a great soul. Why not? We have this kind of like false humility that we carry around. Or we can't proclaim our greatness, but actually everyone else is thinking that he's great. So Krishna will also acknowledge his own greatness, celebrate it. The presence of black deer glorifies the place where they stay. He's talking about a great person being Sri Radhika. Now, this is where the dynamic is going to shift splendidly. Now, Lalita Devi, she is coming into the atmosphere. So Lalita, off stage, she's not on the stage here. She says, friend, do you see the prince of the Gopas? They spotted the effulgence of Krishna. Then Krishna says to Madhumangal, friend, that's a girl's voice. Let's be quiet. So now we have to go under wraps. Now we have to keep this confidential conversation, secret. Krishna certainly doesn't want to let everybody know his affection for Radhika. He's sharing it with Madhumangal, but he's not openly sharing it. Lalita and Vishaka enter. Lalita says, look, by divine arrangement, Krishna stands before us. Let us go to him. They approach Krishna. Glory, glory to the bliss of Gokul. We should beware of these gopis. They are very, very tricky. Gurudev said they are more tricky than Krishna. Even though they're so beautiful and sweet honey-tongued, still they are more tricky. And this is what Rupa Goswami is able to bring out of the text. They're all tricky. Actually, all of these, because they're all trying to hide the truth of this incredibly powerful affection that Krishna and Radha feel for each other. And Madhu Mangal, Lalita and Vishaka are only concerned with actually bringing this loving couple together. But somehow, through circumstances, they don't want to come, they can't come together. These emotional obstacles checking them. And the gopis and Madhu Mangal are going to purify those obstacles so they will meet. This is what the whole book is about. The whole book is about meeting and separation, and how the gopis and the gopas facilitate Krishna's meeting of Radha. This is the spiritual conclusion. This is what Rupa Goswami is giving us. It is directly the direct spiritual conclusion. Can we digest it now? Gurudev said you can either read this book like a story, or you can read it with the wisdom of understanding what is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, what is Ujjvala Nilamani, what is the path of Abhideya that Rupa Goswami has described. If we have this background, then we don't read it just like a story. We can enter into the very esoterics of Krishna's heart, which is wanting to connect with Sri Radhika. Krishna says, friend Lalita, I think you must have come to Vrindavan forest to pick many beautiful flower petals. So now he's initiating conversation with these girls. Lalita, by saying pick instead of give, you hide the truth. You certainly already know. Please take this lotus petal. So Lalita straight away, she's very bold. So thank you, Manjulali, for getting that together so quickly.
Yes,
so
right. Sorry, I was not at all prepared.
No, I didn't prepare you. You asked me beforehand, but I didn't think about this idea. This came from Yashoda. So if the devotees here want to expand that text, we can follow together. Now, Lalita is placing a love letter in Krishna's hand. This is like monumental. This is the first time this has happened, by the way. You know, there's never been any overt exchange up until this very point that Rupa Goswami is describing. He's bringing us from the very beginning. He's showing us the devastated heart of Krishna in his attraction to Radha. And he's shown us something of Radha's attraction to Krishna to date in the drama. But now there's actually a meeting of words through this petal, this lotus petal, which has a love letter on it. And then Krishna says to himself, heart, be peaceful, be happy. I think this flower petal grew from the seed of your desire. So Krishna is thinking like a conditioned soul practically, that from his desire, Yogamaya in fact, is able to manifest the fruit of his desire. And then Madhu Mangal, he says, jokingly, he wants to break the atmosphere, bring it to another level. He says, Lalita, what is the use of this leaf? Simply full of letters. Better you give us a leaf with sugar candy on it. He wants to make something light here. Krishna says, friend, please read the letter. This letter is a cup full of nectar for our ears. So Madhu Mangal, he says, friend, you have all seen the generosity of you cowherd men. Oh, sorry, we have all seen the generosity of you cowherd men. However, because we were sumptuously fed by the wives of the Yagya Brahmanas, I will begin by offering respectful obeisances to the Brahmanas. So Madhu Mangal, he even makes an invocation before he's going to read the letter, demonstrating his Brahminical nature, which fits the pastime. It keeps it in a very respectful, at the same time confidential, at the same time jovial nature. It's all perfect. Everything here is perfect because these writings are directly describing the reality of the spiritual world. Then he reads the letter. Oh, dearly beautiful, the artistic loveliness of your picture is now impressed within my mind. Since you are now living within my mind, wherever I wish to run, because I am agitated by impressions of you, I find that you, oh my friend, are blocking my way. This is a very, very intimate exposure of Radhika's heart. Radhika has really taken a gamble. It's almost like Rukmini. When Rukmini, she writes to Krishna very boldly, come and save me from this, jackal of Shishupal. I am meant for you. It's a direct, affectionate reach out from the woman's side. Generally, it's the male who initiates. But here, the woman is so much in love that she is initiating the exchange. Then Krishna says, friend, this verse is very difficult to understand. Please read it again. Madhu Mangal reads the letter again. Of course, Krishna becomes so happy. Krishna becomes blissful and says to himself, he's saying, saintly girls are afraid to break the rules of morality. I think her love must be very great. This is important. Krishna is recognizing the boundaries that Radhika is breaking. This breaking the shackles. Na pariyeham nirabadya samyujam sa. This verse, Yama Bhajan Durja Geha Shrinkala. In this verse, when Krishna reappears, he congratulates the gopis on breaking the shackles of their family lives. And here, Krishna is commenting on this girl, Radhika. She's breaking the rules of morality by the power of her love. And excited, Krishna openly says, look, look. And then he sees in the distance, he sees all his Gopa friends and the cowherd boys, and a whole Sakya Bhav rises in his heart. And he remembers the boisterous nature of his loving cowherd boyfriends and the sort of freedom amongst themselves and their personal confidentiality. And he's suddenly pulled out of this being mesmerized entirely by Sri Radhika's words. He's pulled more back into a Sakya Ras mood, which will be revealed now. Then Krishna comments, accompanied by all my loving friends following the cows and averse to hearing about women. You see, they're like brahmacharis. Averse to hearing about women, I wander in the forest. These loose girls should not be allowed to pollute us. Quickly, I will go and complain to the Gopa elders. There he was, 1 minute, completely ready to fall on the floor in love to Radha. And all of a sudden, by the impression from the Gopas with the cowherd boys, this Sakya Bhav has suddenly risen to add a special flavor to the pastime. And this is amazing. Krishna, with feigned indignation, quickly struts about. So now he's letting his own softness, which was melting at Radharani's letter, be covered by this boyish, practically, mood in his attraction and affection to the cowherd boys. Madhu Mangal picks this up immediately. He says, concealing a smile, O crest jewel of the brahmacharis, think for a moment and defeat these foul-mouthed gopis with your words. Chase them away. I myself will tell Gokul's queen everything about these shameless girls. Madhu Mangal touches Krishna's hand for a moment. Surprised and bewildered, Lalita and Vishaka exchange glances. Are we following? Are we seeing the nuances of what Rupa Goswami is describing, the moods? Lalita and Vishaka are surprised at the way Krishna's responded just now. This is the prema vivart, the trickiness of love that Jagadananda also describes. So Krishna says, friend Vishaka, Radha has never seen, Krishna saying, friend Vishaka, Radha has never seen me with her two eyes. I have never seen her with my two eyes. This means that they've never looked at each other with unadulterated affection. They've seen each other, because we know the pastime when Radhika is born blind in Vrishabhanu Maharaj's palace, and Krishna rocks the cradle and looks at her face, and the first person she sees in this world is Krishna. So they've certainly seen each other physically, but their affectionate moods have not connected at this point. This is quite definite. What obstacle stands between us? I will follow you, he's saying to Vishaka. Then he says, but I think this must be some other boy that has captured her heart. So he's sort of like throwing a fish out, more or less. You know, it's not me that Radhika's talking about. It must be somebody else. Now, this next verse, I personally think is very, very beautiful and filled with affection, coming from Vishaka, giving confirmation that no, it's you that Radhika is thinking about. Vishaka says in Sanskrit, in a circle of Braj, who is great and powerful like you? With a small particle of your inconceivable power, you lifted Govardhan Hill. Then you lifted the great mountains that are the saintly gopis' hearts. O boy with lotus eyes, you are the person in this letter. I felt that was such a soft, loving exchange from Vishaka, demonstrating Vishaka's mood as opposed to the more bold Lalita's mood. So Rupa Goswami is bringing in the characteristics of these personalities who are so pivotal in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Then Madhu Mangal, he's catching Krishna's mood. Talkative girl, stop, stop. I myself saw how the cowherd men with their upraised sticks held up Govardhan Hill. Why do you praise my dear friend Krishna in this way? He did not hold up the hill alone. So he's breaking any sort of Aishwarya mood immediately. You see, it could go to a state of consciousness that's not going to be conducive ultimately for the depth of Radha and Krishna's meeting. So Madhu Mangal has to keep bringing it back to a different flavor. These are just my understandings. I'm sure all of you present will have your own appreciations of this. But I'm just wanting to share this particularly today because we're glorifying Srila Rupa Goswami Pad. And I think his greatest glory is to bring us into this Rasa Tattva arena through this particular writing, because it was this particular writing that melted the great Vaishnavas' hearts in Puri. And they felt that extreme confidence that, yes, this mission of Mahaprabhu, this extraordinary mission, will be successful. So then Krishna says, Lalita, this is too much talking. Please stop. Lalita says, handsome one, you delight everyone in Gokul. Why must this one girl suffer because of you? Lalita is much more direct than Vishaka. She's almost chastising him. Why are you making a pretense of not accepting her petal letter that she'd written on the lotus petal? Krishna says, my companion Madhu Mangal does not tolerate any deviation from the path of piety. And Sridham, busily searching for my faults, does not even sleep. Now he's trying to maintain some type of brahmachari exterior. Then he says, cruel Kamsa harshly rules this country. O bewildered girl, in these circumstances, how is it possible for me to fearlessly make a pious and beautiful girl burn in flames of anguish? So he's speaking really contradictorily to his own heart, but hoping that he will be defeated by the clever gopis in this contradictory mood, which in fact he is defeated. Now, Lalita, now she's going to defeat him. Our hearts are so polluted by miserable conditions that we are certainly going to Pluto's kingdom. She's in a sense agreeing with Krishna. Yes, we shouldn't have brought this immoral letter to you. We are actually so sinful that we're going to Pluto's kingdom. You are right, Krishna. Nevertheless, Krishna does not give up. His beautiful, loving smile, which is full of cheating tricks. Lalita is really challenging him. She can see through He's strutting around like a brahmachari. She understands his heart has been pierced by Radhika's letter. Oh, Srimati Radhika, Lalita is saying to herself, you are very intelligent. How could you have developed such great loving affection for this deceitful debauchee from the neighborhood of the cowherds? Lalita cries this out in a passionate mood. These are not like false words to each other. Lalita is so clever that she's challenging Krishna's trying to make an obstruction by pretending to be a brahmachari. Madhu Mangal says, bewildered, beautiful girl. Krishna is learned in all the scriptures. He is our friend and counselor. Why would he disobey the rules of morality? What is the use of all your words? Words that are like crying in the forest. Then Vishaka says to herself, now it's going to change the subject slightly. We're going back to the beginning, this topic about the garland that Krishna wanted. And then Vishaka says, this garland of Gunja was worn by Radha. Now I will give it to Krishna. By observing his response, I will know his actual feelings towards Radha. You see how clever they are, the gopis. They're really, because they're not sure entirely. This is the excitement of this drama. Neither parties are completely sure that this is going to be successful, that they're going to arrange this meeting. It's like we're reading this and we know what is the outcome, but they involved in it, immersed in it, don't quite know exactly if they're going to be successful or not. So now Vishaka, she wants to test this, his feelings towards Radhika by giving him a garland that was worn by Sri Radhika. Now she says openly in Sanskrit, may this very beautiful red and black Gunja necklace gracefully hang around your neck. And she places the necklace around Krishna's neck. And then it's an explanation here that if the word Saradhyakyam is divided Sa Radhikyam, this ambiguous verse may also be translated, may virtuous Radha, whose mouth chants the name Krishna and whose heart passionately loves you, hang around your neck like a Gunja necklace. So both parties, Krishna and the gopis, very much know the Sanskrit language and its depth and its ability to transform from one meaning to another meaning. It's called parokshvad. Gurudev used to comment many times that Krishna likes parokshvad. We're saying something, but actually we mean something else. So Vishaka has meant this, and Krishna understands. Krishna, but he smiles. And now he's still continuing his pretense. He pretends to be angry. Although these Gunja berries are very red, hard, and gracefully round, they are both crooked and unripe. I do not wish such a necklace. As if bewildered, Krishna removes the Gunja necklace from his neck and offers it back to Lalita. So what's actually taken place is that now they have this garland from Krishna's neck. Krishna knows this, and he's offering that garland for Lalita to take to Radhika, which is scented by his own fragrance, which he hopes will please Radhika. Nevertheless, externally, there's this other drama going on where Krishna is apparently rejecting Radha's advancements by taking this necklace. This ambiguous verse may also be translated. This garland is an ambiguous love message from some young girl. This is what Krishna can be thinking. Although great love is intended, the words are harsh, and although they are very clever, the words are also crooked. I do not wish to accept such a message necklace. So I think I'll stop here. Oh, I'll read couple of more pieces and then I'll stop. So this is the exchange that has built up. Lalita and Vishaka are trying to arrange for the meeting between Radha and Krishna, and they're sounding out Krishna's affection for Radha by bringing that petal letter. And Krishna is putting on a pretense of accusing Radhika basically of immorality. So now Vishaka says aside to herself, Krishna's bewilderment is our good fortune. She covers the necklace with a cloth. Now we'll just read this final verse. Lalita says, this is very beautiful. Destiny has shown us the unflinching celibacy of a snake who loves millions of gopis. That's pretty radical. We should both go and stop Radha, who has fallen in love with a very unsuitable boy. And Vishaka, she says, yes, friend, you are right. So just see how they've thrown everything back at Krishna. And when they leave, Krishna is going to regret. That's what the next verse is. Madhumangal is saying that after they exit, he says, this girl adores you. Why don't you adore her? You are building a staircase that leads up a mountain of regret. And then Krishna responds, friend, what you say is true. It was not right to mock that girl. So now Krishna is going to be repenting for his, just as Radhika repents her behavior when she goes into Man in the presence of Krishna. So you can take that screen off now, Manjulali, and I'm going to conclude here. So I just wanted to make a little window into the extraordinary speciality of this particular book that Rupa Goswami has given to us today for your contemplation and appreciation of the speciality of it. It's not of this world. It's not an easy book just to pick up and read at any moment. It's the sort of book that we have in the most treasured place in our library, where we pick up after we know we've chanted nicely, we know we've performed some seva, and then we sit down with this precious jewel and we absorb ourselves. We can absorb ourselves in Vrindavan Leela directly, because the pastimes just go on and on and on, deeper and deeper and deeper. So extraordinary that someone of this caliber should give us, the most fallen, myself anyway, the most fallen individuals, this opportunity to walk into the spiritual land, the spiritual kingdom of Radha and Krishna's hearts in their attraction and affection for each other. It's only about love. It's about serving the love between Radha and Krishna. It's about serving that Unnata Ujjvala Ras. This is what this process is about. And this is how Rupa Goswami is giving this to us through books of this caliber and description. So I'll end there. Thank you all for your patience and tolerance in hearing this. And thank you for your time. And if I've said anything that has been of value, we all know that it was totally Gurudev's mercy, my Gurudev, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj's mercy, that if anything positive has transpired from this presentation that I've offered today. So thank you all very much. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha, kripa sindhavebhya, patitanam parnivyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. If there's any simple question, I mean, it's a very complex topic. If we want to go into the complexities, that is there. And we can also discuss, you know, Sattvika bhavs, Anubhavs, Vyabhachari bhavs, Sthai bhav, etc., the samagri, the mix of all these. This is what Rupa Goswami has given us. He's given us everything. Or Prakashatma, don't give me any left field question though.
Margie, I have to go now, but I'm happy to leave the class going if you want questions. Thank you for giving us an incredible lift off for the week. It was an absolutely extraordinary, don't know how to describe it, not just an explanation, but I felt huge amounts of transmission from the way in which you presented everything. You brought everything into more color, more vivid than ever before. So that's really deeply appreciated and gets us ready for Wednesday when we're going to be opening up with our we're going to be opening up with kirtan at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then we'll go straight into our dear most Srila Maharaj, formerly Rasanandan, at 9:15, and he's going to be speaking on why did Mahaprabhu name him Rupa.
Very
so thank
nice.
you so much, Maharaj.
Thank you, Yashoda. Thank you, Yashoda, for making this facility. Prakashatma has a question here.
Yeah, I'll just let you guys crack on.
Thank you, Yashoda.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. I'm driving, by the way.
I can see, yeah.
So I just wanted to know, because I have a copy of Vidagdha Madhava, but I don't have any commentary. So all this explanation you gave were really nice. Did you have them revealed to you in your heart like this, or has any commentary been?
I've never read a commentary on this particular book, and I'm only speaking reflecting your saintly qualities, Prabhu. I was thinking about you when I was reading it, and I was appreciating your qualities and just sharing this publicly, and whatever manifested by itself with your mercy. Can't hear you now. I missed some of that.
Your explanation was very good. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Yeah, it's a whole psychology there. It's a whole in-depth psychology, the psychology of love. It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comment or question they'd like to share? Otherwise, I'll close the program. Please take these inspirations if you're feeling inspired by this particular book, and to get the background on Rupa Goswami. Of course, we need all the teachings from the acharyas, especially Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. He unpacks absolutely everything for our pleasure. So if there's no more questions or comments.
Just
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Dandavats, Madhuri.
Oh,
Hare Krishna.
Asha wanted to speak first. I'll speak after.
No, you can speak, Madhuri Didi. I will
Oh.
do later.
I was just going to say, please accept my Dandavat Pranams and thank you so much. And I also posted on the chat the PDF of Vidagdha Madhava and also a link to Srila Rupa Goswami's other books in PDF. For anybody who hasn't checked
Wow, very good.
the chat
Okay.
and wants to take those before we close. Also posted them on the Mercy Grace Leela event WhatsApp thread.
Okay, thank you, Madhuri. Anyone have any question?
Maharaj, Hare Krishna, Dandvat Pranam. And
Dandavats.
such a good explanation. And it really, I didn't feel like that it should stop. And I will request you that if you can do the session of Vidagdha Madhava and Lalit Madhava sometime, and with your realization and with the mercy of Gurudev, we can also understand the way you were making it. I came to know when I was attending the seminar of Bhagavad Saptah last week by Siddhanti Maharaj, that most of our scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, as you were just reciting, Brihad Bhagavatam, is talking about Asraya Tattva. And Asraya Tattva is a service Tattva. And the whole purpose, the whole goal of our sadhana, our prayojan is how to serve, like how to serve Radha Yugal Kishore, is so that they can meet, they can be happy. And the happiness can be by meeting and separation, which you explained it so nicely. So I
Not
will
me.
request
Rupa
you,
Goswami is explaining it.
like, yes, Rupa Goswami is the madhyam, that like he is the one, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is using him as his basuri, as his flute. Krishna was trying to convey his message to Gopa, Gopis and cows by flute. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is trying to convey his message through the flute of Rupa Goswami.
Yes.
Rupa Goswami is becoming the flute of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And but I'm really, really, really impressed, and I will request you, and I will try to make out time whenever it is available for you, that please these two books, please try to do it so that conditioned souls like us will go inside. It's so sweetly you are explaining. There is no doubt there. Like when you talk about, when you think, and there is so softness that of the thought of either the gopis or Krishna about their love to each other. So please, Maharaj, I do not know how much.
And the sakas also. This is also extraordinary. How Madhu Mangal is just built in, and later
nice.
on, Subal comes in there. Yes.
I never realized in that way, so soft way. All the time, like it, we have heard it in a little
so tricky,
way.
so tricky. Their words between each other.
I
their
will request
language.
Madhuri Didi to please arrange some meeting with. If you have time, Maharaj, I know you are very busy, and but it will help us if you read these two books.
Thank you, Didi.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, so I'll close now. Thank you all so much for attending and patiently listening to this pastime. It's been such a pleasure reading it. The first time I've ever done it in my life, read from this Vidagdha Madhava. Simply because Rupa Goswami says in the last verse himself, this book should be studied. So I took the liberty of studying it with all of you, even though it wasn't much of a feedback atmosphere, but nevertheless, I just presented something that we can think about. I just wanted to bring this book to our attention this week, to highlight it and the specialities of the way that the gopis serve and bring Radha and Krishna together, the way our Gurudev is bringing Radha and Krishna together, just like we sing in the Guru Vastakam every day. Nikunjayuna Ratikeli Siddhai, that our Guru Saki is making the arrangements at every moment for Radha and Krishna to meet. This is straight from here. This text, it is a window into the spiritual world. And Rupa Goswami is carrying that conception, that window for us. Okay, Prabhus, Dhanyavad Pranams. You must all go and have your lunch or your evening meals, wherever time zone you're in. Thank you all so much for listening. Vansha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhavevacha patitanam pavnivyo vaishnavena namaha. So I can just